Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this meeting of the Georges River Local Planning Panel. And my apologies for starting a bit late. As I said, we're having some technical challenges, but no doubt our wonderful people will sort those out. I'm Donna Reigate, and I'm chairing the panel this afternoon. We're currently streaming from Council's offices in McMahon Street, Hurstville. The people on the panel today are Awais Karacha and David Epstein, who are our expert panel members, and Lisa Pemberton, who is our community representative. So welcome to all of you. We've been appointed by the Minister for Planning to determine specified development applications, including the applications that are on our agenda today in accordance with the requirements of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act. I would, of course, like to acknowledge on behalf of the panel the Bidjigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of all lands, waters and sky in the Georges River area. We pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who live, work and meet on these lands. I'm required to advise you that under the provisions of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act, this meeting of the panel is being live streamed and will be made available on Council's website. People who wanted to make representations to the panel were asked to register a summary of their interests, and we've received 10 registrations. And we've got a number of people who are listed to address the panel this afternoon. I won't read through the list of names. I'll just call people in the order. But I'm going to start, even though Argyle Street, Penshurst is the first item on our list for speakers, I'm going to start with Belmore Road, Peakhurst, because the Argyle Street people are the ones we're having the difficulty making the technical connection with through the IT stuff. As required by the Local Planning Panel Code of Conduct, panel members are required to disclose any conflicts of interest in respect of any matter on the agenda for a panel meeting. The forms have been completed and are tabled for Council to be included in the online minutes of the meeting. Nobody has disclosed any conflict of interest in any matter on today's agenda, and I'll just check whether anything may have arisen since the forms were done that anyone needs to declare. Nope, terrific. Okay, we've got completed assessment reports from Council staff for the 5 development applications we're looking at today. We've done site inspections and looked at the localities for those 5 matters. The matters are as follows, and bear with me, there's a lot of numbers to read out here. DA 2024/0618, 19 to 21 Argyle Street, Penshurst. Lot consolidation, tree removal, demolition of the existing structures and construction of a 2-storey centre-based childcare facility accommodating 76 children with associated basement parking and landscaping. DA 2025/0284, 44 Belmore Road, Peakhurst, change of use and associated alterations and additions, proposed cafe at ground floor and office, storage to first floor. DA 2025/0248, 34 Parkside Drive, Cogra Bay, demolition of the existing dwelling, site clearance including tree removal and excavation, and the construction of 2 new detached dwellings for a proposed dual occupancy detached development. DA 2025/0266, 4 Queens Road, Cogra, construction and use of co-living housing. DA 2024/0460, 34 Beach Street, Blakehurst, rectification. Okay, so how does this work? As we progress through the matters on the agenda, only the people who've registered to speak will be able to make representations to the panel. Each of those persons is asked to limit their presentations to 3 minutes. And I know that there's one gentleman that needs an extra 10 seconds, 3 minutes and 10. So we will accommodate that because we were asked to in advance. We would ask people who are invited to speak via Teams to speak really clearly and loudly enough so that we can hear and everyone in the room can hear. And we encourage anybody who's on Teams to leave your microphone off until it's your turn to speak, please. And I'm asked to remind everybody that any defamatory, discriminatory, or offensive language may result in whoever uses it being exposed to liability for which council and the panel takes no responsibility. So what happens is we hear from the people who wish to make oral submissions to the panel. We'll go through all of those in turn, but starting from the second one on the list. And then the panel will close the public meeting and move into a closed session, which isn't live streamed or recorded, but the outcome of that will be available in the minutes of the panel meeting on council's website as soon as it's confirmed by the panel, and that usually happens within 2 or 3 days of the meeting being held. Okay, that's the preliminaries. We'll now call our first speaker, and this first group of speakers are in relation to 44 Belmore Road, Peakhurst, and I'd like to ask Brett O'Neill to come up and speak. There's a button on the right hand side. If you press that and it turns red, then your microphone will be on.
Good evening, councillors. My name is Brett O'Neill. My wife, kids, and I live at 77 Isaac Street, directly beside the proposed cafe. May I start by saying that our dealings with council and the panel have been very polite and professional, and we appreciate the time and effort that you have put into this particular DA. When we bought our home 17 years ago, the site was a small family-run corner store, quiet and in keeping with the neighbourhood. The current proposal is for a 60-plus seat cafe with outdoor dining, both front and rear, and altering a once quiet family backyard into a public car park with a loading zone less than 1 metre from our bedrooms. This represents a drastic and unreasonable intensification of use that would bring ongoing noise, traffic and safety issues to our residential street and disruption to our peaceful family home. This is a low-density residential zone, and a commercial cafe of this scale is incompatible with the character and amenity of the area. The proposal conflicts with Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979, which requires development to protect residential amenity. Of major concern is Section 12 of the LPP, which specifically refers to our property and the shared boundary fence, stating pedestrian visibility issues and redesigning the driveway to meet sightline requirements. We are seeking clarification on what this actually means. Will the cafe's boundary fence be removed or altered, resulting in an open, unsecure car park beside our home, creating privacy and safety and security risks? Will our fence need to be lowered? This would remove the 1.8 metre fence that the council itself states provides our privacy. Will a no parking zone be installed in front of our home? Losing that parking would force our children to cross a busy road to get to our car. It is concerning that approval could proceed without clear details on driveway design and changes to fences or parking, all of which directly impact neighbouring residents. The cafe's proposed 6 a.m. opening 7 days a week also breaches residential quiet hours standards under the Protection of the Environment Operations Noise Control Regulation 2017, which extends until 7 a.m. on weekdays and 8 a.m. on weekends. The site may be zoned E1, but is completely surrounded by residential housing. Starting at 6 a.m. means deliveries, staff arrivals, and general noise will begin even earlier, 7 days a week. If this cafe proceeds, we request the driveway and loading zone use be restricted to after 8 a.m. in line with the proposed rear outdoor dining hours. When considering the Georges River Development Control Plan 2021, 9 car spaces are required for this site, yet only 3 are proposed, a shortfall of 6. Parking credits may exist on paper, but do not address real-world congestion. We are also concerned about the noise from engines and car doors slamming, as well as exposure to exhaust fumes through our bedroom window less than 1 metre away from the proposed car park, creating a health risk for my family. The supplied traffic report incorrectly states the nearest bus stop is 59 metres to the north. In fact, I'm wrapping it now. In fact, the bus stop is directly out the front of Belmore Road and another directly across, further reducing nearby parking. In closing, on behalf of my family and the 60 local households who signed a petition opposing the cafe, which was submitted to council, I respectfully ask that the panel take into account all concerns raised this afternoon when making their decision. Thank you.
Are there any questions? No. I think we probably asked them when we were on site. Thank you. Okay, I'd now like to ask Timothy Bennett to address the panel, please.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this afternoon, and the group of people who are here today to speak against the development are also speaking on behalf of the number of people who signed the petition. A cafe in the local area would seem a good idea, but there are a number of features related to the development that I feel pose safety risks. Individually, these may not seem a problem, but collectively they present serious safety issues and need more careful consideration. First of all, the cafe is on a corner of a busy roundabout. No other cafe in the area is at a similar location like this, and they all provide practical off-street parking. Current on-street parking is not minimal as stated in the report. Figures 4 and 5 on pages 73 to 74 do give the impression of little traffic activity and low use of on-street parking, but submissions on the development have included photos that demonstrate that current use of on-street parking is regularly high. Already, current high use of on-street parking poses problems for safe traffic flow. Medium to large trucks turning into Isaac Street from Belmore Road need to cross over white lines to proceed along Isaac Street, as it is not a wide street. Photos demonstrating this were also included in our submissions. Cafe patrons presumably will park on both sides of Isaac Street, posing serious space problems for safe traffic flow in both directions. Access to the proposed off-street parking at the cafe will be difficult to negotiate in these circumstances and could result in accidents. The nearest bus stop is 3 metres to the north. A close location of the bus stop adds to complications with traffic flow. These factors will result in adverse impacts on traffic residents and patrons, particularly residents trying to exit from their driveways needing to cross over white lines to get safely onto the traffic flow. I think I've gone over my time. Ding.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is Michael Callis.
Hello, panel. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again for your time. I've got a few points to raise. Obviously, from my end, I live on Isaac Street on the same side as the shop. The issue I have is with my view being obstructed when I reverse out of my driveway. I've had several near-miss incidents with that, due to obviously the number of cars that are parked on that side of the road. My concern is obviously if this was approved, there would be obviously a lot more foot traffic, a lot more cars coming around that corner, and it would further obscure my view of that street. Obviously very concerned I will have an accident in the future if that was to be the case. My second issue would be around sanitation. We have a couple of our neighbours in that street have a bit of a sanitation issue. There's a number of vermin that we've caught and poisoned over time. My concern, obviously, with premises that have food on it and bins that are there 24/7, that sanitation issue will increase further from where it is, and then that will be a very visible issue going forward. The other thing I have with the parking, it's very hard to park on this street. Up until recently, there was a monthly market on the church grounds on the other end of Isaac Street. And when that was conducted, that was between 4 and 9 p.m. on the last Friday of every month. All of the streets, the surrounding streets, were fully locked up with parking and found it very hard to just manoeuvre, let alone park on the street, and often had people double parked in front of our home. On top of that, there was a lot of rubbish left behind by everybody. So that's another concern of ours. I find it difficult to understand. And obviously I haven't set foot inside the premises, but 100 seats, I think, looking from the outside, seems to be excessive for premises that size. I'd find it hard to believe you'd actually fit that many people on the premises. And I understand the zoning, etc., but I don't think it's fit for purpose in the current time. With also the obstruction that I've had driving and also the lack of parking, it should be noted, Mortdale Plaza is about 1,600 metres or 1.5 k's down the road from this part of Isaac Street. There is a truck, an 18-wheeler that comes through several times a week that supplies that Mortdale Plaza, the Woolworths there. That truck cannot turn on the roundabout that is Isaac Street, the junction of Isaac Street and Forest Road. That truck continues up our portion of Isaac Street and turns on the roundabout onto Belmore Road. And that does that both coming to the Woolworths and leaving the Woolworths. And evidence of that is actually, if you've been there recently, in the last month or so, you'll see large tyre tracks have squashed their way through the corner there, which is directly in front of that shop. I just find the congestion is not non-congruent with what the purpose of this shop is trying to get out of it. So I don't believe, with the large trucks that come through this street, I don't think it's appropriate for our visibility and our comfort in parking and driving through the street. Just in summary, the last thing which we have a concern with, and I'm not sure if this is appropriate here, but we are of the understanding that a number of illegal works took place on those current premises, and those works are part of this DA. We understand they were ceased, but it is a concern of ours as to whether those have been done correctly, whether they are above board, and we're concerned, should this be approved, should the owner do this again in the future, what recourse do we have to stop this, and how far would it go? In summary, again, thank you for your time today, and thank you for letting us speak and raise our concerns. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is Judy Mason.
On behalf of the 63 residents that signed the petition against this development, thank you for allowing us to voice our concerns. I purchased my property approximately 20 years ago. I live at 42 Belmore Road, which is next door, adjacent to the proposed development. There is a house with a granny flat, which are rented on the other side of my property, which have 4 adults, therefore 4 cars, all on-street parking, as per the landlord's instructions as he uses the garage. No parking is available outside the front of my property due to the closeness of the roundabout. On-street parking is an issue, especially for me if I have visitors and when my carer visits, which is regularly, and depend greatly on them being able to park nearby. 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. operating hours. 6 a.m. is too early. Staff would have to be there by 5:30 to set up tables and put out signs, etc. 4 p.m. closed. Staff would be there till at least 4:30 to pack up, etc. The other cafes in the area all open around 7 and start closing at 2:30 and are shut and gone by 3. They are all not 7 days a week either. Some are shut on Mondays. Where do all the staff, which is up to 6 people, intend to park, as there are only 2 off-street spots allocated, one of which is an accessible spot? Safety is an issue. Belmore Road is the main road leading into Lugano from Riverwood, so it is a busy road. Crossing at the roundabout is a concern, especially around school drop-off and pick-up times due to the amount of kids catching private and public buses near this roundabout. We are concerned that the cafe's outdoor dining area would cause further distraction to drivers in an already busy and dangerous roundabout that frequently has accidents, with the last one as recently as 2 weeks ago. A concern would be from patrons picking up takeaway containers and coffee cups and disposing them around our properties. Lack of privacy from the first floor of the building is an issue. I have put up hedges around my property, but if the staff are going to be upstairs for their breaks and balcony is erected, then they will be able to look into my backyard, which I don't want, especially since I do have a pool. Noise from patrons coming and going and hanging around their cars chatting is also an issue, as I know my dog will start to bark and will set off the other dogs in the area. I hope you can appreciate our concerns, and thank you for your time.
Okay, our final speaker in relation to this proposal is Henry Kizak.
As someone who has lived in Isaac Street for over 30 years, on behalf of myself and the 63 local residents that signed the petition against this development, I would like to thank the panel for the opportunity to state our case to address something that is going to impact our lives so greatly. The size of the proposed car park will have no impact on the issues that we will have with on-street parking. Drivers would drive in, and if it is full, they would be forced to reverse back into Isaac Street, causing a dangerous situation for both pedestrians and other motorists. When cars are parked on both sides of Isaac Street, it becomes very narrow, with a large amount of trucks and cars using Isaac Street. We are concerned about the safety of pedestrians and drivers entering and exiting their vehicles. With the lack of parking on Belmore Road due to the roundabout and the 2 bus stops outside the cafe, staff, customers and residents would mainly be parking on Isaac Street, adding further potential of driveways being obstructed and adding an increased risk of accidents when exiting driveways due to lack of vision. Residents and visitors would also be losing the ability to park outside their own properties. We are concerned that the cafe's outdoor dining area would cause further distraction to drivers in an already busy and dangerous roundabout that frequently has accidents. Nowhere in the noise emissions assessment does it have any consideration for the noise coming from car doors slamming, cars parking outside residential housing, loud cars and trucks left idling while picking up takeaway, loud talking and takeaway delivery drivers all from 6 a.m. As stated in the management plan, they will operate in a manner as not to disturb local residents, and with the proposed opening hours being from 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. 7 days a week, it would be impossible not to disturb local residents. We are also worried about the possibility of late night trading if the cafe is approved. It's stated that the garbage collection and deliveries should occur between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. There is no proper way to control how companies schedule food deliveries or garbage collection. Food deliveries are often made from 4 a.m. with trucks left idling. There are concerns for further disruption with after-hours cleaning, property maintenance and grease pits being pumped out regularly, as well as bad odours from the kitchen exhaust and pumping out of the grease pits. Also with the amount of commercial food waste and garbage on site attracting rats and pests. We have 11 cafes servicing the local area, all of which are either in business areas or industrial zones. This cafe would be one of the largest cafes in the local area with the longest trading hours, but the only one completely surrounded by residential housing, while also offering the least amount of off-street parking, with the one other similar sized cafe having 13 off-street car spots. We are told the cafe is like for like with the previous business. The corner shop had 1 person serving and no more than 2 customers at a time. The cafe has the potential for over 60 customers plus takeaway and 6 staff. There is no comparison between the two. In closing, we understand that the development meets many zoning requirements, but with how the local landscape has changed over the years, we feel that this development is completely unsuitable for this location being surrounded by residential housing. As shown in the petition with 63 signatures, there is an overwhelming amount of local residents that reject this development. I hope the panel realises the gravity of how many people would be impacted by this decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, if panel members don't have any additional questions for the people who've addressed us on that matter, I'll move on to. Okay. All right, let's start at the beginning, as they said in a song somewhere. Argyle Street, Penshurst. Our first speaker for that matter is Premi Sivanasan.
Thank you, panel, for giving this opportunity to talk and put our concerns forward as part of residents in Argyle Street. There are a couple of high-risk concerns with the proposed development, starting from traffic point of view. At the moment, the road or the street has got very limited parking even for the residents. Given the number of attendants at the childcare center, that is 76 children and 20 staff, during drop-off and pickup, it's going to cause congestion getting into the street as residents. I myself work from home all 5 days, trying to drop off kids, pick up kids from school and back. It's going to cause like significant delays in getting access into the street, because Forest Road on one end is always busy. Spencer Street getting into Stony Creek is always busy, regardless of the time. Having this volume of parents coming in to the street to drop off and pick up is going to cause risks and also accidents. Second one is the landscape. So Argyle Street is classified as a low density residential area, having a 2-story building to accommodate 96 people, that is children plus staff. I don't think it's a suitable location to have a childcare center. Within the 2 to 3 kilometer radius, there's already 30 childcare centers. I'm not really sure the need to have one, whether it would serve the community, especially the adjoining streets. Within Argyle Street itself, there's not many kids who would attend daycare. It's all school-going kids, and it's not fit for purpose. And the last one is the noise. So 2 houses away from where the building is proposed is where I live. This street is very quiet and peaceful. With kids, I'm not being offensive here, but kids are always noisy during the morning, afternoon, and evening. They get outdoor time. They are going to be noisy. It's going to disturb the peace around the neighboring houses, as well as the privacy of installing cameras to watch all these kids can invade privacy into the adjoining residents. And in summary, I would say pretty much the proposed development has got safety, traffic, environmental impact, and community need. Thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Anybody? No? No? Okay. Our next speaker, also in relation to Argyle Street, Penshurst, is George Vurantonis.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for the opportunity to speak. You must have patience with me. I get very nervous. I believe I have Tourette syndrome, so it doesn't really help. On behalf of Vorla Lambertus, who lives at 17 Argyle Street, I'm speaking on her behalf. Basically, Vorla wishes to formally object to the proposal of a dual lot childcare centre development on the basis of its scale, intensity and built form, which are fundamentally inconsistent with the objectives of the R2 low density residential zone. Now, as per Council Draft Local Environmental Plan 2020, dwelling houses are permissible in the R2 low density residential zone. The R2 zone primarily accommodates low-scale residential development, such as dwelling houses and dual occupancies. Furthermore, council minutes, Thursday, 20th of June, on page 2, there was an amendment there, amendment to the objectives of the R2 low-density residential zone to amend the zone objective relating to local character in the R2 zone, so that a high standard of urban design and built form that enhances local character is promoted. Where the main objection is, this is a commercial property over 2 lots. It's not a residential lot. It's not residential property. There's no argument that it's a commercial. Nowhere in R2 does it state commercial properties. Primarily, we're not discussing here the purpose. I believe childcare centres can operate in R2 zones, but not at the scale of over 2 lots with a 2-storey property. I also urge the panel, if you could take a drive to 301 Kingsgrove Road, where there has been a commercial style childcare centre built there, and have a look at how it doesn't fit in with the adjoining properties. Secondly, the proposal disrupts the rhythm and pattern of detached dwellings along the street. It introduces a dominant build that visually overwhelms adjacent properties, eroding the established suburban character the zone seeks to protect. Again, a single lot development of a childcare centre would provide superior scale of development. Thirdly, amenities impact. Now, it has been discussed by previous persons. Vehicle movement, noise and extended hours introduces a level of activity that is incompatible with the quiet enjoyment expected in R2 zones. Residents are entitled to a reasonable expectation of privacy, acoustic comfort and traffic safety. I believe that the development or proposed development fails on this scale. Finally, I'm not sure if the proposal has addressed the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act 1979, New South Wales, in particular Section 44.15, Section 1B, which requires the consent authority to consider the likely impacts of that development, including environmental impacts on both the natural and built environments and social and economic impacts in the locality. Now, you don't have to be a property valuer to realise that if this development goes through, property prices in the street will tumble. In closing, I urge the panel to consider not just the land use label, but the scale, form and operational impacts of the proposal. It is not a modest community facility. It is a high density development that belongs in a commercial or mixed zone use, not in the heart of a low density residential street. One final point also, Argyle Street is a dead end street. I would hate to think an emergency vehicle coming down Stony Creek Road from Forest Road, if it needs to get to the centre quickly, it's going to have to divert. It could take that extra minute. That extra minute could be the difference between life and death. And I thank you all for your time.
Thank you very much.
Any questions?
No, nope. Terrific. Thank you. Okay, we will now move on to Parkside Drive, Kogarah Bay, and our first speaker there is Peter Shield.
G'day there, how are you? Thanks so much for the opportunity to speak today. I've only got a few points, but they're very important. Firstly, this particular DA is non-compliant. And where it's non-compliant is in terms of its frontage. So in simple terms, it's not wide enough to sustain the two planned dwellings. Clearly, this means that the block is too narrow to support what the applicant is looking for. Now, today I went for a bit of a walk down Parkside Drive, and there were 6 other duologs recently built or under construction in the street. And they were all essentially identical. They were on a rectangular envelope, and they had the single roof over the 2 duologs with a party wall in the middle. So because this particular development that we're talking about here is not wide enough to sustain a building like that, they've gone to a different format, or the applicant's gone to a different format. So the format that they've gone to is building that, or attempting to plan to build 2 dwellings in tandem. Now, what this means is that all of the bulk from the buildings are pushed down to the rear of the block. So unlike those other ones within the street, which are, you know, popular, they sell well, they don't have any privacy issues. They have the parking in the front, which enables everyone to get out of the street pretty quickly. This one has two in tandem formation, but with a driveway going up the side of the block. So this driveway is literally a metre or two, or sorry, 1.2 metres from the houses that are next to it. And there's three houses like ours, which is 28, 30 and 32 Parkside Drive. And the gradient there is 1 in 10. So it's a very, very steep slope. So I'm very concerned about not only the look of it, the privacy issues that we're going to be confronted with because all the bulk has moved down and overlooks everybody else. I'm really worried about the driveway. So being non-compliant, I'm a little bit confused as to why we're here. I guess there's some sort of mechanism for the applicant to mount an argument that this is worthy of consideration. Now, I've had a look at their argument and essentially it's very weak. What they're saying is that they acknowledge that it's too small. They acknowledge that the frontage is too small. It's not too small by a couple of centimetres, even a half a metre. It's actually 2.5 metres too narrow. That's a big chunk of the land. So that's their argument. Their argument is that they acknowledge that, but you know it's a really good development, notwithstanding that. And they also said it's in the public interest to allow this development to go through. So I'm quite confused that a non-compliant DA is anyone in anyone's best interest other than the applicant. So they've got a very weak argument. They haven't really addressed the issues of privacy, bulk, scale, the driveway, and also that driveway comes down to Parkside Drive. And I know you guys were there today, I saw you. But Parkside Drive's a weird sort of street. It's a little schizophrenic. At night, there's nobody there. During the day, there's nobody there. But from 4 to 6, it's like a racetrack. They come around the hairpin bend where this development is located, and it's very dangerous. So you've got someone trying to exit from a ski slope type driveway and onto a pretty dangerous road. And also in Saturdays in the wintertime, all the kids and parents go to park right out in front and play in the soccer fields across the road. So if it's a wet day or whatever, you've got a car coming down that driveway, loses control potentially, or can't see because it's the actual vision of the rest of the street is hidden by the neighbouring property. There's a great opportunity there for some sort of car incident. So that's it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker, well, the next two speakers are on behalf of the applicant, I think. They are Daniel Barber and Sean Chu. So you want to come up together? Yeah.
Evening, panel members. So just to start off with this application, if you've seen, we submitted it for a detached dual occupancy. During the assessment process, we found it a little unusual. We never had an RFI. We did have a letter at one point asking us to withdraw the application because there was identified non-compliances with the proposal. And then we wrote back advising we'd like to seek council to assess the application. And then I think it would have been after a couple of months, we had a letter of refusal. But at no point did we have a phone call or an RFI letter or anything like that. So it's a bit unusual that usually in the process, I understand councils have really strict assessment timeframes and criteria and under pressure. But I think that the proposal, in my view, I always believe it's something that's a better outcome than a compliance scheme, and it's not a controversial one. So effectively, when first considering design, the architect put a lot of consideration to work out what would be an envelope that would be the best outcome for the site. So the planning controls pretty much result in a basement with 2 attached dual occupancies with a 1 metre setback. And in my view, that an 18-metre width site, it ends up in a monolithic style structure that would read as 3 stories the whole way, and the land goes up at the rear. So it would kind of terrace the land. And the idea is to provide this housing for the clients is to age in place. There are a couple that are in soon to retirement with a young family. That's their children to be moving to the house at the rear. And the idea is that they want their house to be relatively flat, which is why having a attached occupancy, in my view, is not a better outcome for the needs of the household, but also in terms of visual impact, results in a monolithic style duplex that sits on the hill, come up, and result in less opportunities for landscaping. A lot of consideration is put into the design of a single-story house appearance with 2 stories in a basement with a driveway up the side, and then a 2-story house at the rear. And the idea of that is that the streetscape of both the adjoining buildings are, on the right, we'll have a 3-story house. On the left, you have a 2-story part, 2-story and undercroft area. And the idea is that it results in less visual bulk by having a house at the front. And because it's a very large block, you can fit a house at the rear. And just to note, we can actually do a CDC for a 2-story house with basement on this site. But again, the intention is they want a level house where they can age in place and be with their family and help care for their children, which will be living in the house behind. During the assessment process, we've designed it to be almost fully compliant, with the exception of the minimum width criteria that applies to a detached duplex of 21 metres. The site's about 18. If we having it attached, we would comply with that standard, but we think it's a better outcome to have it as attached. And also, we could comply with that criteria if both houses were attached in the middle, but we thought it's a better outcome to actually have a separation of at least 6 metres and planting to break up the form so it reads as 2 and rather than one kind of larger structure. There's a claim that we're non-compliant with the height standard. I think they've said there's insufficient information to determine that. Our intention is to be fully compliant with the height, so we're happy to provide that additional information. FSR, they counted plant rooms as FSR and all the parking. Based on the definition, that's not included as GFA. We're happy to provide a scheme of, if we knew where the non-compliance of FSR would be happily comply with the FSR control. My recommendation is that we defer this matter to a later panel meeting, given the opportunity to give an RFI of council to identify, firstly, where's the non-compliance of the height, where's the non-compliance of FSR, and we would, if there is a claim that there is a non-compliance, we're happy to address it and resubmit the amended drawings back, go on exhibition for 2 weeks and go back to council for consideration of the panel meeting. I strongly believe it's a way better outcome to have this detached form rather than having an attached duplex. And I think that's the only non-compliance I really see is like landscape area. We actually apply that as well. Like you can include rock outcrops as part of the landscape area definition. So I think the only non-compliance we really have is the fact that it's technically for a point, it's not a basement. So we are 3 stories at one point, but the neighbour's 3 stories, and the other side's 2.5. And I think the only other non-compliance is the detached dual occupancy width, which is 21 metres, but that's really designed as 2 houses facing the street that are detached. We're one behind the other. So I don't think it's really of relevance at standard, and we meet the objectives of the standard. So they recommend it to be deferred if possible. It's just a better outcome to go into Land Environment Court for the owners in time. And yeah, we have thought about that as a secondary option, and we would explore that, but we're worried that we might get the same result potentially. we just really want an RFI to understand the issues. So.
Sean, do you want to say anything?
Yes.
In your remaining time, such as it is.
Right. My name is Sean. I'm the architect, but I'm also speaking on behalf of the applicants, Michael and Lisa, back there, who English is not very good. So, obviously, they're quite upset that we're here today because they planned this for a retirement house for themselves and their children at the back of the house. And the key reason, just to add on to what Daniel was saying. The reason why we did not go with this compliant development, which fits on a site that's over 15 meters, is simply because we could not fit a lift that could traverse 4 stories. Because as you can imagine, on a steep site, we need to step the houses back over 4 stories. We can't get a lift through, and Michael, as a painter, for 33 years of his life, simply has very bad needs at the moment. He needs that to in the house that he's going to retire in. So, and also the gentleman, just to address the gentleman who's gone, who said before, addressing the possibility of a CDC. So he's mentioned that there's 3 sites, 6 dwellings, about 5 houses away from us that's under construction. Those are exactly the same format: a basement and 2 stories. So a 3-story frontage to the park. So we don't understand why the report claims that what we're proposing it's not in accordance to the future character of the area. Just to also add on to what Daniel's saying, very specifically, the frontage. Now, if we were to propose this development as a compliant development, the frontage would be the site minus 1 meters of each site. We're going to get a frontage that's 13.4 meters over 4 stories. Now, what we're proposing here, the house at the front at the moment is 9.6 meters over 3 stories. Now, if I draw a diagram, we're looking at nearly 50% to 60% of the visual impact compared from the park if you look straight towards the street. So what we believe what we're proposing here has a much better impact on the public. And we didn't take a shortcut to go through a CDC process. We were hoping that council would consider the merits of what we put forward and give us the opportunity to at least discuss minor non-compliances and amend them to get approval. However, like Danny said, we were not afforded the chance to make changes. Not a phone call, not an email. Please withdraw your application and come back again. So we think our clients have been unfairly treated here by not being given that opportunity. That's what I'd say. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much. I'm just having a look at the letter that council sent in relation to withdrawal of the application, and it raises at least 25 specific issues that for which there's or further information needed or non-compliances or whatever. So it's not quite just withdraw your application. Do not pass go, do not collect $25. I think there's been some attempt from council's part to articulate at least 25 concerns with the proposal.
Could I respond to some of these? So in the big picture, I think, in my opinion, there's 80 to 90% of the 25 points, maybe more than 90% of the points are not relevant because, like Daniel pointed out, there are some errors. Actually, in fact, a lot of errors, and if we've got 2 hours, I can list down the errors that we think that council's assessor has made in assessing our scheme here. Now, there's quite a few of these are not compliant. It's non-compliant by default because the assessor is unable to determine the actual, for example, again, height. So
just remind me, what was your response to council's letter? You said no, we want it to be considered.
Requested the explanation of the non-compliances.
Yeah, okay. And we were not given an opportunity.
Yeah, we just want to know, is it where is it height or a facade? We're happy to comply. We're going to be a fully compliant scheme, except the 21-meter frontage we can't comply.
Yeah. So just goes back to my point. So one of the 25 points says that our height is not compliant. Now, so if we look at all the sections that was provided to council, none of these show that the height is non-compliant. Now, council may have spotted a few areas that it's not clear and say, look, maybe this point it could have been a 10-minute phone call and say, could you clarify if this specific point is non-compliant? That never happened. We didn't get an email or phone call. It was just deemed non-compliant because council was incapable of determining it. So again, out of the 25 points, there are plenty of such instances. I'll give you another one. Landscaping. We are proposing, I can't remember the exact number, 260 or 280 square meters of landscaping. The minimum is 220. So we exceed the landscape by what, 60 square meters. Now, council saying that I can't remember the exact words, but it could not be determined how much of this landscaping is rock outcrops or deep soil. Now, if we look at the LEP definition, both lawn, deep soil, plants, including natural rocks, can be counted as landscaping. So again, it doesn't matter the proportion of rocks against grass or whatever. We've got 260 square meters where 220 square meters is required. We comply. Now, because the assessor said that it cannot be determined, if you look at it, landscape, non-compliant. Now, that's just 2 examples. Sorry.
engagement is always good.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's definitely true. Members of the panel, do you have any questions for these gentlemen? No. Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming this afternoon. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Excuse me, Donna. Angela had registered to speak and then withdrew her registration. After the meeting started, she asked if she could join again, but I'm unable to. I've sent her the invite and she said she's joined, but she's not there. I did just try to ring her and it's engaged. It goes for voicemail. So I'm just not sure how you want me to handle this one. Did you want me to try and ring her again?
Just try again. Just do it from there so that it's transparent to the world that we're trying to get in touch with this person.
No, she's not answering.
Okay. So she withdrew her
I have
registration.
received her speaking notes. I think she was for the application.
Okay.
Sorry, 1 second. Angela? I can, we'll just connect you on the phone if that's okay. I can't get you on the meeting. I can't see you on there. Okay.
Do it on the phone.
I'll just put you on speaker and we'll put you through our system and you can talk now. Okay. Okay. All right. You don't want to talk? Okay. All right. Thank you. Okay. Bye. She actually didn't want to speak. She just wanted to listen.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay. Well, that solves that problem. Right. As I said at the beginning, what happens next is that the panel closes the public meeting and we go into closed session to discuss the applications, and we will get the minutes up of that discussion as quickly as we can. So thank you to all the members of the public for attending this afternoon and speaking on these applications, and also the applicants' representatives and applicants. Thank you to the panel and thank you very much to the council staff for doing all of the work in all of the assessments. I'll close the public meeting and we'll move into closed session now. Thank you.